Africa, Global Tapestry Africa, 1200 to 1450. So our objective is to explain why states in Africa developed and changed over time. Um, so again, why they developed and why they changed over time. This is Africa. This is the geography of Africa. You see the Niger River. So we're going to focus on West Africa here in the Hausa Kingdom, the Ethiopian highlands in Ethiopia, uh, the Swahili coast. We're going to talk about that as well. As you can see, the desert is for a long time a barrier between Africa and Europe and Asia. So Eurasia and Africa are not Afro-Eurasia yet. Okay, so again, we're going over Hausa, Great Zimbabwe, Swahili Coast, and Ethiopia. There are uh, many different empires, including Mali, Songhai. But we're going to go over those when we talk about the trans-Saharan trade routes. But for right now, we're going to focus just on these four. And first on the Hausa. So Hausa state building, they had an interesting setup. They did. They let's say here's the Hausa, right? And here's the rest of the world. At that time, you had Byzantium, the Song dynasty, the Umayyads, and they were all trading, right? We got the Silk Road, and we got the Indian Ocean trade over here. And then there's the introduction of the camel. Now, with the camel, that can go without drinking water, I think for 7 months. I think I saw it online. Well, the desert, the Sahara, is no longer a barrier. Now it's a highway for them to go up and down and get some uh, trading going on here and began the trans-Saharan trade. Now the trade brought not only with it trade and goods, but also culture, right? So what were the reasons for this change? What were the reasons? Remember, we're focusing on change and how uh, um, uh, empires developed over time and how they changed. Well, they changed because there was political stability in Eurasia. So you had political stability with the Umayyad, Abbasid, and the Song and the Byzantines. That political stability allowed for trade to happen. Also, the introduction of the camel, as I mentioned, as well as knowledge of the environment. The oasis and the Sahara, knowledge of that environment allowed these traders to travel. And lastly, the desire for gold. So those were the reasons for change. So while this trade again brought riches, it also increased the interaction between uh, cultures, and it brought more cities, like more urbanization. Um, Timbuktu became one of the centers of learning in the world, Islamic learning. So the Hausa, like I said, they were quite a bit interesting. They had actually political decentralization. They did not have a king, and no, they didn't have democracy either. They had, similar to um, um, the Greeks, they had city states. Well, kind of like city states, because they weren't really city states, because they were actually connected by kinship. So it was like a bunch of different cities connected by kinship and family, also connected by specialization, uh, by what they produced. So let me show you a better graphic on it. So again, you got regional states, regional states. Here are some of the names. I think that there were seven original ones, and I didn't put them all in there. But the political stability came because of the cultural similarities and the kinship, right? And the kings were also helped out with a council, okay? So it was not absolute rule. And like I said, each region specialized. So each region did something. So for example, one of the regions, I think it was Rano or Kano, one of those two. I put it in here for a reason. They developed cotton and textiles. So the other regions used the cotton and textiles and depended on Kano for that, or Rano. And I believe Gobir was the one that provided the soldiers. I might be wrong. I'm probably wrong. I'm wrong about half the time. So the point is that they had different specializations, and they, in essence, economically depended each other, um, culturally were connected, and as a result, politically they were, although decentralized, connected. So here you see the kingdoms compared to the Songhai Empire and the Mali Empire. Um, and now the culture. Although I'm talking specifically about um, the Hausa culture unity, this could apply to any West African culture, including Mali. Okay, so it was mostly um, matrilineal. That means that they passed down their inheritance through the mother, and they traced their lineage through the mother. Women had rights, and often they were next to men in the ruling of places. Okay, um, they had people called griots, both male and female storytellers. They had a lot of power. Now, how could you, okay, how could a storyteller have a lot of power? Well, because it was up to the storyteller to either bring up a positive history of a ruler's reign or a negative history. So that in turn, knowledge and power kind of went hand in hand. The knowledge of the history and them being the ones that were passing down the history from generation to generation gave them a lot of power. Um, this is a picture of a modern day griot. Now they also had masks. The masks um, were supposed to be part of the culture, part of the spirits, part of what they used. Now, the reason that I talk about the masks and the griots and the women and the matrilineal is that although Islam came in via the trans-Sahara trade, like I said, the trade brought in cultural changes. It did not change everything. Uh, a lot of the Hausa cultural um, phenomena was still there. They still continue to practice matrilineal rights, women's rights. They had griots and masks. So Islam did not completely change everyone. And it was also just an elite religion. It was for the elite, not for the regular folks. Not for the regular. So now we got Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe. We got that here. Great Zimbabwe. Great Zimbabwe. Now, state building for Great Zimbabwe, they did have a king, so it was based on a monarchy. They did have a hierarchy. Their monarch was also a religious leader. They had a large standing army, and they had a state-controlled economy that depended on the coast. Their economy actually was mostly agricultural and herding, and also based on trade with the Swahili city-states and the Indian Ocean trade. So they controlled items, for example, like ivory, gold, slaves. So they would collect the ivory, trade it with Swahili people, and those Swahilis would then trade it with Indian or Chinese merchants on the coast. All right, so that's the Swahili city-states. Oh, this is now the Swahili city-states. What am I talking about? Swahili coast. As you can see, there were, in the picture, there were large, ginormous Islamic influences in the Swahili coast. So it supplied most of the gold from inland Africa. The ports around the Arabian Peninsula supplied horses and goods that went to the Middle East and Mediterranean Europe. Like I said, the trade brought with it the religion and slave trade. So part of the trading and religion was also what's called a syncretic language, where two languages kind of mixed, the Bantu language and Arabic, uh, and it created Swahili, which they still use today. Once again, it was a quite prosperous region, and Islamic. And also, one of the things we're going to talk about when we go over the Indian Ocean trade is it had quite a few diasporic communities. That means that there were a lot of people of India that had moved into the Swahili coast. So again, two things that I went over real quickly: slavery and um, diasporic communities. And again, I'll bring those up again later, so there's no reason to write those down. Ethiopia. Ethiopia was like the redheaded stepchild. Why? Ethiopia was right in the middle of the Abbasid Empire, right in the middle of the uh, uh, Egyptian Mamluks, and they were Christian. It was a monarchy. It had a hierarchy also. The monarch was also the religious leader. They claimed direct descendancy from Solomon, right? They had a state-controlled economy. Now, part of the way that they legitimized their rule, even though it's over here, it should also be over here. Even though it's part of the culture, the king decided to build churches, the main ones in Lalibela. These churches were carved out of stone, as you can see in the background. They're inside. So those things are, I mean, it doesn't look like it's that big, but notice how big the people are, right? So these things are, yeah, they were for the king to show how God and Solomon and his lineage kind of legitimized who he was and made him king. The agriculture, again, was the base of the economy. They also traded with the Red Sea, with people in the Red Sea, along the Red Sea, I mean. Items such as ivory, incense, gold, and exotic animals. Uh, like I said, culturally, it was the only Christian country in a sea of Muslim states. It kept ties with Jerusalem for a long time, and like I said, developed the churches at Lalibela. So, for slavery prior to 1450, look for the conversation we're going to have online. Okay, that is the end, ladies and gentlemen.